Welcome to how to maintain and motivate your team during this wild time that we have today. I've got two wonderful guests here for us. I've got Tim Boulden of Boulden Brothers, and I have Daniel Johnson of Johnson, Dowell, and Plumbing. I want to welcome them both and give them a chance to introduce themselves. Tim, if you would you please go first, sir? Share with us a little bit about yourself, your company, and where you're located.
Sure. My name is Tim Boulden. I'm with Boulden Brothers in Newark, Delaware. We were founded in 1946. It was my grandfather and his brother for coal delivery. We got into heating oil, propane, a whole bunch of other things. But right now we're doing all three trades: plumbing, heating, air conditioning, and electric. About 50 people on our team.
50 people on your team. Thank you so much, Tim. And Daniel, if you would please say hello and introduce yourself and your company.
Yeah, hey guys, my name is Daniel Johnson. I'm with Dial One Johnson Plumbing. We have been family owned and operated since 1965 out of the Dallas-Fort Worth area of Texas. Grandfather started in 1965. My mother's owned it for the last 33 years, and I have been here now 24 years.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so we're sitting at 8 technicians and about 4 helpers.
Got it. And guys, the reason why I asked Daniel and Tim to be on here is because they represent our foundation very well. Tim is a larger company doing multiple trades. Daniel is a smaller company doing multiple trades. But the thing that both of these gentlemen did was they went to action immediately and started doing the things to ensure that their team members were safe and that their clients were safe and that they could continue to operate business. Last week, we spoke to Steve Egger and how he was doing it in Seattle. This week, we're speaking to these two great members, and today they're going to share with us. I would like to start. I'm going to go to Tim first. All right. And Tim, I'm going to go to you. And my question is, would you just share with us what was the first thing that you did when you realized that COVID was going to affect your business? What was the first major move that you made to protect your company and your people?
Wow. And I realized too late. I should have been listening to my wife about a week earlier, and I should have responded then. Because the time I thought to respond, I had to scramble to try and get gloves for everyone.
Mm.
We had gloves, but we didn't have enough supply. So I immediately ordered a 6-month supply of what I thought was a 6-month supply of gloves. Now thinking back about how they should be using them, it's probably a 2-month supply of gloves.
Oh, wow.
But that's how it started. And then it just went from there. But I would like to stress, at one point you called me an expert. At some point I thought I had a handle on it. Every day that goes by, I know less and less, and I get more frustrated.
Mm.
I keep saying to people, I could have lived 1,000 years. I would have never thought that this would come with my business career. It's amazing how in a 2 or 3 week period, it has just turned our industry, actually our whole world, up on its ear.
Yeah. And we're all in the same boat together. You know, Tim, I saw a post where people were talking about the arena, and it was that famous Teddy Roosevelt post where he's referencing that it's the people that are in the arena in the fight that really get it, and the critics aren't listened to or shouldn't be listened to. When I was thinking about that analogy of the arena, there are people that are right there in the fight. Your service people, any service tech that's hitting the field right now, they're in the arena. The doctors, the people that are on the front line services getting food to people. And outside of that, and arena's big, right? So they're in the actual ring. Just outside of the ring are the leaders of companies like you that are making the best decisions they can, the people in their corner. And then obviously there's all the people that are actually in the arena, but the arena right now is the world. This is a world fight that we're all in, and we're all learning as we go how to do it right. So, man, I think a lot of people could relate to they wish they would have taken action quicker, but who would have? I mean, I thought this was going to be like, SARS. A couple people got sick, and it wasn't going to be a big, world altering thing. So you're in the same boat as a lot of people, Tim. You're just taking some, precautions now. Daniel, let's go to you, buddy. I got the same question, man. When did you realize that this was going to be more serious than what people thought it would be? And how did you react, and what changes did you guys make as quickly as you could?
Yeah. So the I really want to thank Service Excellence Training because uh, at first my opinion was this was being dramatically over exaggerated by the media and things like that. And when y'all had your first, not probably not your first, but when y'all had your podcast with Steve up in Seattle about what was going on, and because that was a place that was hit pretty hard. Immediately the next day, in that podcast, I saw where Tim had created a game plan for what they were doing. So that really is what urged me to turn to look at it instead from my perspective and change it to, okay, this is a worldly perspective of the perception of what's going on in the industry. Mm-hmm. And so at that point, that's when I started creating my own plan, immediately starting talking to my guys about training. And I was in the exact same boat as Tim. It's like, all right, let's grab masks, let's grab Tyvek suits. We had those things, but not nearly enough. And so what ends up happening is I had 4 people scouring the internet looking for masks, respirators, gloves, and the Tyvek suits, hand sanitizers, things to clean the guys' tools with. And man, it was and still is an obstacle. We have gotten small where we were able to get small groups of things from different places, but we are still constantly looking for those things, to the point where I've talked to all my guys and told them, hey, look, the internet is gone. Like, when you go shopping, go by and look for alcohol, look for handy wipes, look for sanitizers. If you see any of those, you have a company card, buy them, because we need those things as a group. So trying to exhaust every resource to try and acquire more needs.
Mm-hmm. Good input there. So you had talked about Tim's plan, and Tim produced I'm sure it's probably evolved by now, but Tim produced a COVID operation policy, and he was gracious enough to share that with us. By the way, everybody that's on this webinar can get it, and I'll give you the link to that. It's super easy to get it.
And Todd, I'll give you, it's gone from 1 page to 2.5. So I'll get you the new one after this.
All right, guys. So Tim will get us the new one. I'll get it updated on the website as soon as I possibly can, which will be today. And if you will just send me an email, Todd with 2 D's, TODD, at serveextra.com. I'll make sure that everybody gets a copy of that, Tim. So, Tim, what I want to do is I want to roll into just an open question for us. And I just want you to unpack it to the best detail possible. What have been the important steps that you've done in your company? And let's go back to this topic of, retaining people. Because let's be clear, people are going to most likely be furloughed, have vastly reduced hours, but we don't want to lose them. We still want to keep them. So what have you done to retain people during this time, even in the face of some tough decisions that are probably having to be made?
Well, and it's interesting that you say that, because yesterday we had to furlough 6 people.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason we had to do it had nothing to do with work volume. We've already hit our budget for plumbing and electric for the month. HVAC's behind, but it would have been behind anyway because of weather. So it had nothing to do with that. The state of emergency order in Delaware requires a 6-foot social distancing without exception, except for medical people, first responders, hospitals, and such. The problem is we had 6 people as riders in our organization.
Mm-hmm.
They were apprentices. They were learning the trade on the job. And we didn't have the ability to do anything other than to furlough them. We did furlough instead of layoff. A layoff is just a nice word for termination. At least it is in Delaware. Some states may have different definitions. So we furloughed. We're paying their and our portion of their benefits for the month of April. We're hoping they will be able to return beginning of May based off of how this is proceeding. Have not promised past the end of April, and we have to wait and see how this goes. We are picking up their medical benefits, told them to apply for unemployment. We're hoping that they'll be able to get back to us quickly. Here's a difficulty that we're finding with morale, and that is that the the situation in New York City, and there's some cities that have been negatively impacted to a large degree, is very different than the reality in Delaware, but they're hearing the news. So Delaware has 120 cases, I believe. The state of 1 million people. It's not something that we shouldn't be concerned with, but it's a relatively small number.
Mm-hmm.
But they're hearing in the news about people dying every day and 80-some thousand people. And so it's really starting to affect everybody's psyche. Us having to do the furlough, I think, had a negative impact. And I keep stressing that, boy, we're in a good position. We're an essential service. Our numbers are good. We didn't plan to do it. We did it because we were forced to do it. But we also had an interesting situation this week that I would like to talk about, if now's a good time.
Yes, please.
If someone calls into your call center and says, I need to speak with someone because they may have been in my home and they may have been around someone that had the coronavirus, what do you do? It's just a may have been exposed situation. Well, we had that happen on Wednesday. The first question you should ask yourself now, if you have not had that phone call, is what would you like to do in your organization if you get that phone call? A call taker of ours had a conversation with the client about it, which is probably the worst thing that could happen. So now, if we get any coronavirus related calls, they have to either go to me or our controller or our accounting manager, who also does HR. Mm-hmm. So I think that you need to control that from the very beginning. What we did learn also is the story that was relayed to me as to what had happened, how our tech may have possibly been exposed. That was on Wednesday, was very different than when I called the homeowner on Thursday to find out what was going on. Mm-hmm. And I was reluctant to call because of all the privacy issues around medical situations. But finally I said, I'm going to call and I'm going to introduce who I am and say, obviously due to medical privacy, you don't have to answer any of these questions. If there are any you are comfortable answering, I would greatly appreciate it. He was an open book and talked to us about it. Just a little bit of background so you'll know now, he had been called by his doctor who said that he may have been in contact, someone who was diagnosed with the virus because he had gone to the doctor's office. Come to find out, he was in the doctor's office on the 17th. Mm. So you get this call and you're first thinking, oh, wow, this is an immediate, how's this coming from? So he was in the office on the 17th and our technician was in the house on the 23rd. So now from the 17th to the 27th, we're 10 days past when this person may have been exposed. They don't even know if he was exposed and he's showing no symptoms. We did send the technician home for the rest of the week. And if the person that could have possibly been exposed hasn't called us by Sunday, which would have been his 14 days, then we feel comfortable releasing our technician. But the story that was relayed to us by the time it got to a couple people and then to me was not exactly what I had thought it was.
Yes.
But as the owner or a trusted person, certainly should be in HR because of the privacy matters. It should either go to you or someone else. The other thing that I will tell you is even though that we need to maintain privacy due to it being a medical issue, the technicians will not.
Right.
So they will all immediately know who it is. And unfortunately, they may not get the answer correct. Mm-hmm. Or their story may change to them just like it had changed a little bit before it got to me. So we were in what turns out to be a situation that we should have certainly reacted the way we did. But it's not as concerning of a situation as we first thought it was. I should have handled it differently, and I should also immediately gotten with all the technicians and let them know what's going on.
That's a great point. So you're talking about motivation and retention, and we got on it early, really early as a company. But I'm going to tell you why I got on it early. I'm a data guy. And I didn't get on it early because I believed that this was going to be the most contagious thing on the planet. That's not what got my attention. What got my attention was the following, Tim. I did a Google search on the flu, and I noticed that it was at 500 million articles. I'm like, that's a lot of articles. The same day when I did it on COVID, and this was weeks ago, 19. I made sure it was 19.
I was on the call, or we sat in for it.
Yes. Well, it was 1.2 billion the day after that. I quit looking because it was exponentially going up. When it hit like 4.9 billion, just a few days later, I quit. But I was watching how fast it was eclipsing. It was truly the definition of a viral topic online. And it was eclipsing the news so quickly that it became apparent to me that even if it wasn't going to be as serious as a medical condition as it is, because we didn't know, I knew it was going to be a serious media condition,
Mm-hmm.
which is why I started talking to you guys about it quickly. And I certainly don't want to be lumped into any bandwagon. I'm not on the extremist bandwagon. I think, I don't know, I'm not a doctor, and nor I'm on the denier bandwagon. I'm more of I'm here to help and protect our clients. And this is what I see the public is thinking. So that's good. Um, And I understand the furloughs of apprentices. Steve did the same thing. And I'm not sure if Steve or Rachel are on this call today. They may not be, but Steve did the same thing and hated to do it. And it wasn't for lack of work. Those guys are having a very, very busy March. They're way ahead of budget. It was because of state regulation and rules and not being able to, keep all of the risk factors in check. They have to keep those plumbers healthy.
Yep.
The apprentices will have a place when they come back.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel, I'm going to roll it over to you, my friend. Let's give you an opportunity. What are some of the things that you guys have experienced or that you've learned, kind of in the light of Tim? How have some things changed for you guys rapidly, and how have you adjusted to those changes?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things we did immediately when we started this was immediately started trying to isolate technicians as much as possible. We're fortunate we're in a situation where we haven't been forced to let any of our helpers go yet, or go on furlough. But one of the things we did do is start locking in technicians with specific helpers. So the helpers aren't bouncing around now, so that we're trying, because it was one of those things in our meeting, in our huddle, we sat down and started discussing this, and it was like, look, the goal here is, if we do nothing and someone gets sick, or somebody has a family member get sick and they get quarantined, then technically everybody needs to get quarantined, because we're all in such close interactions with each other every day. And, our thought process I'm expecting somebody to get sick. I'm expecting either somebody to get sick or somebody to get quarantined, one or the other. Okay. And so what we talked about as a company is, okay, guys, we need to isolate ourselves, not because we don't want that personal interaction, but we need to try and isolate ourselves so that if one or two people get sick, the goal is for the company to be able to step in and help those people, with their income while they're sick, because they can't help that. But the only way that happens is if the company is able to continue running. Mm-hmm. And the only way the company is able to continue running is if we still have guys running calls. So, which means we can't have a mass quarantine of every single one of our technicians. So that was one of the things we did, where it was like, okay, let's try and start separating people as much as possible, and as much as possible, because ultimately, hey, I realize, it's not 100%. You can't make it. It's almost impossible to do it. You get a big job, but doing it as much as possible is a really big step to preventing your entire company from having to shut down.
Mm-hmm. That's excellent. I want to hang out here with you for a moment, Daniel. When I asked you the other day how you were motivating your guys through this, you talked about embracing the Marine Corps philosophy. Will you talk about that a little bit and tell people what you mean by that?
Yeah. So it's one of the things that a great Marine quote, is embracing the suck. And here's the thing: we talked about this to our guys in our meetings. It does suck to have to wear a respirator or a face mask going into every single call. It sucks having to, wear a Tyvek suit. Some of the things that we're doing in order to keep each other safe and customers safe is embracing the suck. Now, one of the ways I explain this to them, is I use, so it's fate that, right now our company is reading Leaders Eat Last. Amazing book, great book. But one of the phrases, I'm going to quote it real quick. Okay, there's a pattern that exists in an organization to achieve great success. The ones that outmaneuver, out-innovate their competitors, the ones that demand greatest respect from inside and outside of their organization, and the ones that have the highest loyalty and lowest churn and the ability to weather nearly every storm.
Mm.
So I read that quote to our guys and said, look, this is a storm. This is a storm that we have to weather. And, we have to, it sucks to have to do these things, but one, we need to do it for our customers. Okay. We need to settle anxieties. We need to look out for the safety. That's what we're here to do, is to look out for the safety and welfare of our customers. And we also got to look out for the safety of our employees and us. So yes, it sucks to do this, but it is a necessary evil in order to get through this storm as best we can.
I love that you used that analogy, and I was smiling because I had Liz Patrick from Roundtable ask me how we were doing, and I asked her how she was doing. We were being kind to each other, and I said, "This is just another storm, and we've weathered many." My exact quote was, "I've weathered storms my whole life. This is just another one."
Yep.
So, and storms pass, and the great thing about a storm is that, man, sometimes it passes and it leaves a wake of destruction. Sometimes it's a light storm and it waters everything so it comes up greener. I mean, Katrina was a terrible storm. It changed the life of people in New Orleans and Mississippi, where I'm from. But boy, in that wake of destruction, a lot of new things were built and a lot of things were better. There was pain, but it was better when it was said and done. So embrace the suck. I love that. Just, it sucks, own it. Hey man, aren't these masks great? Don't you love struggling, breathing? No, it sucks, but it's the right thing to do. So I like that you do. I like that you just embrace that. Tim, let's move over specifically on the topic of motivation. And by the way, we're not looking for things that aren't real. If it's tough to motivate them now, tell us the best that you are doing to keep them motivated, because I'm sure everybody's in the same boat. So what is the best that you have found that you can do to keep these guys motivated, Tim?
Well, it's interesting how we, as a shout out on a daily basis, send budget to actual calls and budget to actual average ticket.
Mm-hmm.
So if anyone is paying attention on a daily basis, they would have known how we were performing in the month of March. But if you were to ask, it seems like most of them thought that we were having a poor month.
Amen.
So it's really interesting. So we are Skyping now for all of our meetings, or Zooming, but I'm getting on as many of them as I can, and I'm just giving a little pep talk on each one and talking about how fortunate we are to be in the trades. Sometimes we don't get the accolades. It's not a glitzy and glamorous industry, but it's sure nice to be an essential service at a time like this. And boy, aren't they glad they picked the trades, because I'm sure they have friends and family members that have been laid off or furloughed or just flat out let go because of this. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of positives for us as an industry in a difficult time that we should be able to, I like weather the storm phrase a lot better than other industries.
Let me tell you guys something. Tim is dead on in what he said. Before today's meeting, I met with what we call our master group. You guys have never heard that term before, but we have a master group of vendors that provide services to you guys. These are people that are in our hemisphere, and we just get together to say, how can we help clients? And in that conversation, Mike Layton from Stochastic was there. Lynn Wise answering a lot of phones for people from Contractor in Charge was there. Aaron from Lead Hub was there. And when we started looking at data, and we don't share your data that's private, but we share holistic numbers. When we started looking at data, what we were seeing was that there was a reduction in overall call volume. But here's what was interesting. The reduction in overall call volume was outweighed and enlarged by the type of calls that were coming in. So let me be clear. Call bookings were off the charts. Those that are calling people were wanting you now. And it was new client services which were off the charts. The existing customers that you've been maintaining are going to call you when they need you. They're just not the ones that are calling right now. So it's new clients with immediate needs. Call percentages are off the charts. Technician closing percentages are off the charts. Overall calls are down, but revenue is through the roof because usually it's new clients that spend the most money with you on first service calls. And we're unpacking these numbers, and we have clients that we're talking to that are doing what Tim is saying. They're getting all weird and they're getting all worried, and we're like, have you actually stopped for a moment and just looked at your numbers?
So what size, based on your information, what would you need?
Oh, I don't. Someone asked a question or something. Vinny, I think you got unmuted for a minute, buddy. I don't know if that was on purpose. So I'm going to go back. So we're asking our clients to actually dig into their data. And before you wig out, who cares if your call volume is down a little bit? That's probably a vanity metrics. Look at your results. It's probably better than what you realize. And the flip side of that is that if you've stopped advertising, then why are you sitting around wondering why your call volume's dropped? If you're not advertising, you're not going to get any calls. You still got to advertise right now.
Yeah, we actually have increased advertising. We actually moved our AC tune-up advertising up by a couple of weeks. So it's starting next week where it was supposed to start middle of the month. The other thing was, if it wasn't due to the social distancing, I was planning on weathering the storm if we could stay open. We're very conservative, carry a very large cash balance. And so I was worried if I ever had to fully close down, that would have had a big impact. But for us to be slowed down a little bit, I think that the companies that have been fiscally responsible and carry the proper cash balances, there's going to be amazing opportunities. Yes. Because there are a lot of weak companies out there that live payroll to payroll that have already panicked, cut their marketing. Now the calls are going down even more, and it's a death spiral.
Yeah, so keep advertising, guys. Adjust your message to include how you're protecting people. Keep advertising. Daniel.
Yeah, I was going to say I completely agree. We immediately started pushing Remy Halos, some kind of air purifier, because that's and then it's one of those that it's not looking at ways to capitalize on opportunity is the smart thing here. It's not one of those like, oh, you raise your rate. Some of these masks that we paid for, I'm not joking. We paid like $80 for like 30 masks. Okay. Normally it costs like a 40 cent per mask. People were charging like $2 for it because they were price gouging because of the situation. I don't think that's a good idea, but there is an opportunity for you to look at the situation and capitalize on an opportunity. Right now, people are really freaked out about germs. So let's start pushing something that sanitizes the air, something that sanitizes your water with water filtration, and so that's taking advertising more for this particular event is important to take advantage of that opportunity.
Yeah. Steve, one of the things that he's done, and it's such a great ad, and you guys have probably seen it on our Facebook pages and stuff because we're sharing it, but he's given a message that's very calming, and he's ending it with, "You're in clean hands." And I love that. It's so great because it puts that positive message over. Okay, guys, in just a second, I want to go to your questions, which means you'll either need to raise your hand. And if you're going, where do I raise my hand? You will most likely, if you go down to the bottom, you'll see either a chat. You can send me a chat button. If you click into the chat, if you find your name and you hit more, you can raise your hand at the bottom. You'll see more. It'll be a chance to raise your hand, thumbs up, thumbs down. We want to hear from you. We're going to open it up. We'll unmute you if you want to ask your question. That would be great. I would love to do it that way. All right.
This is Elmore. I got a question real quick for Tim. He said something here that's been kind of a hot question for HVAC companies the last couple of weeks. Is Tim, you mentioned that you're still doing maintenance. Talk people through why you're still doing maintenance right now.
Well, and I think that there's a lot of reasons. The first one is we're business as usual until we can't be. But the second one is, and there, we've had a big discussion in our organization. There's been some concern for the techs for us doing maintenance. But if this runs into June and July, and we have not done maintenance, we are going to dramatically increase the number of people that will roll into the season without having the proper cooling.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are like we are, tend to have an older client base, if we get that hot summer, we're going to have people that have other health issues that are going to be struggling. The other part of it is maintenance in April is a significant part of our revenue. So can you just, I looked at it's about 20%. If you just look at the maintenance volume, maintenance dollars, but if you were to extrapolate, boy, we should be giving back the club volume for some people that we don't think we're going to be able to get. All of a sudden, it's a large amount of money. And we need that money because the company needs to be here for a lot of reasons. First of all, we got to be able to keep the promises we made to our clients, but we have to be here for our people.
Tim, I have a question. What are the state license regulations on HVAC maintenance? Are they stringent there in Delaware, or are they something that you could do a fast track training to get a technician ready to do maintenance?
No, we can get technicians ready to do maintenance, and that's what the people that were furloughed, that's what they were doing.
Good. That's what I was going to ask about. Smart man, you're already ahead of me. I love it.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And the other thing to look at is what's the best for the consumer? I mean, if you don't do maintenances right now, there are a lot of units older units that serve a high likelihood of breaking down. And if you push those by not maintaining them to the point where you get all the demand calls that you're going to get in the middle of the summer anyways, now you're not able to service all these customers. And then what are their options? Their options are to go without cooling or to call a company that hasn't been doing advertising, that doesn't stand behind their work and provides a subpar quality for that customer. And, so in the long run, what really is best for the customer? I mean, because we can step in now with the proper kind of protection and gear and get that taken care of now, so it doesn't end up putting the customer in a situation where they're having to call 50 million different companies to try and find that one guy that doesn't have any calls because doesn't have a very good company.
Right. Okay, guys, we've got some questions, and two of the questions are very similar. It's in essence about lower supply. And I think it would be nice to hear from them using their own voice. So Gary Singleton, I'm about to unmute you, okay? So Gary, you're unmuted, sir. Feel free to go ahead and ask your question, please.
Hey, Todd, thanks a lot.
My pleasure.
We're all in the same boat, I'm sure, as a lot of you guys, but we are critically low on supplies. I'm friends with Ben Stark, and he's found somebody that can make some masks, but we won't get those for a while. Our guys are reusing gloves, and I'm not even joking, y'all. We literally have one guy that's using wild turkey for hand sanitizer because of the alcohol content.
Is it like this?
Yeah, right. So, critically low. And unfortunately, every avenue that we've chased that was a suggestion from somebody has been, we're either on back order or you're looking at mid-April. And my biggest concern right now is having to shut down because I don't want to risk these guys. Anything you touch, I'm trying to train them. Look at any door. So there's duties on that thing. You really need. Guys are reusing gloves right now. So if that would be really helpful, I think, as a group, if the nation can somehow get us all together and like somebody mentioned earlier, if you happen to see something and it's more than you need, possibly share a message with the group. Hey, if you're critically low, we can help you with a certain amount of supplies. That's our biggest dilemma right now. We're handling, so far we're blessed. No one's been exposed to date. And we're playing it safe. I've followed a lot of your suggestions, Todd, and came up with a lot of my own. I'm kind of a germaphobe by nature anyway, every flu season. So wasn't too hard for me to stress this to guys, but I'll hush and let you try to answer the PPE supply question.
Yeah. I'm gonna let the guys go first because they're our guests. But remind me, guys, I have an idea that I want to share with y'all. Tim or Danny, would one of you guys like to go first?
Yeah, I'll just pass because I don't have an answer.
Okay.
Well, yeah, it's one of those that you're right. It's where do you go? How do you go when the market is completely taken up? Which is one of those I've gone to the extent of telling every guy, look, these PPE gear is essential for us in order to be able to still operate safely. So use every resource and avenue you have. I've extended the sphere of research from just me and my office staff to, okay, talk to the technicians. Technicians talk to your family. We've gotten some masks from a guy that doesn't have anything to do with our company. He's a friend of one of the employees of the company, and he's on dialysis. So he has a bunch of masks that he's had for a long time because he's on dialysis. And he's like, hey, I got a couple boxes. So he threw us, 2, 3, 4 boxes of face masks, which were huge. So it's one of those that a lot of people are willing to help if you will ask them. But if you never give them an opportunity by asking, if you keep your circle here and you be the one doing the research yourself, then you might lose out on some opportunities that might otherwise be fruitful. No, it doesn't help that much, but
Yeah.
we've seen some success there.
Good. So I got 2 ideas. One I gave to Joe Strittmatter. I don't know if Joe's on here, and he actually did it. And it's something that most of us can do. We might have to call one of our contracting buddies and ask for help right now. But one is a sterilization box. Every single one of you guys can build it. It's not hard. You get a box that can hold a UV light. These UV lights are actually powerful, so you don't want to look at it with your eyes. It can burn your retinas out. And he used a cooler. You line that cooler with tin foil, and instead of your guys throwing the materials away, and I know what you might be thinking, reuse these things. Guys, let me tell you something. If you listen to the news, they're reusing them into the hospitals to the point that doctors are even stealing them from each other. Used. You have your guys either have their own sterilization box or you figure a way to get access to it. You take your gloves, you put them in there. They need to get contact, so you'd have to hit 4 sides of sterilization. You'd have to do up, down, about 15 seconds. If it's further than about, 1.5 feet away, it's not going to work. You got to flip them inside out. You do the same thing. Hit the front of the mask, hit the back of the mask. You can actually create sterilization boxes and reuse some of this material, obviously that hasn't been, contaminated with bodily waste and whatnot from sewer jobs. That's idea 1. Here's idea 2. Idea 1 is practical. You get anybody that's got a UV light, you don't want one that's shielded preferably. If you're using a Remy Halo, you might, if you can take the outer shield off, you want it to have as much light contact as possible. But here's idea number 2. We collectively need to start a movement. Everybody knows that the hospitals need this gear. They're not talking about us needing this gear. They need to. They will if we make it a movement. How do you make it a movement? Protect the essential providers. We can come up with something. Just go on social media and talk about we are here to serve and protect the health of this nation. I'll put some things together here, but the short version of it is write your congressman, write your senator, go out of the way, get your people to do it. Maybe we get a change.org going saying we need supplies too. I promise you, it's just because they haven't considered it or they would have already done it. We can create a movement. And we're probably going to honestly have to create a movement if we're going to get this supplies that we need. If it's out, it's out. Although there is one other thing. We might get all the supplies we need in 2 or 3 weeks anyway, when all of these other markets that are making them are bumped up. Can you sterilize with ozone in a box? Tim? Yes, you can. Ozone is a tremendous sterilizer of bacteria and viruses. But what is sterilizing better is actually not the ozone, it's the UVC. By the way, let's be clear. they've not taken the time to study UVC on COVID right now, but it's killed every other virus and bacteria on the planet that's ever come in contact with. I don't think COVID's going to be different, but I'm not a doctor or scientist. We got some more questions here. Jim Bodine, my buddy Jim. Let me see if I can find you, Jim, and I'm going to unmute you. All right, Jim, ready, buddy? I'm going to unmute you. I'm going to get everybody that submitted a question. All right, Jim, you're unmuted.
Hello.
Hey,
Question. I'm really looking at, just this month alone, we've spent probably close to $4,000 on cleaners and hand sanitizers and gloves and things that we don't normally spend stuff on. I think that maybe some of the workforce may get rattled by having to go out and deal with this. So I think we may have even an extension of our problem of finding good help. At least I'm projecting that might happen, that some guys might just get too scared to go out into homes with this happening. So with that going on, and just, the government, I know they're going to pay us back for some of these extra benefits that we're being asked to front, if you will. But I think business is going to get more expensive. So inevitably, is anybody considering to do price increases to offset the projected costs? Because I think it's coming.
Okay. That's a good question. It's costing more to run service calls. What do we do right now? Do we increase our prices to run them?
I can tell you, sorry, it's a great question. I've thought about it. I will not do it now, but I will do it immediately after this is behind us.
So they'll get the benefit of the lower price or the greater increase to your expense, and we'll have to absorb it down the road.
The concern is if the technicians start to talk to their friends about we have a price increase in the middle of a storm like this, and that gets out, I think that would be awful.
I think that you're exactly right. Let's flip it around. I don't think you guys should lower your prices either.
But there's no doubt that we're going to have expenses that we're all going to have expenses that we didn't budget for this year. Mm-hmm. Probably a lot more than we think.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Stephen Charles Egner. Hey, it's Steve. Let me see if I can find you on here, buddy. I've never seen you use all of your names. All right, hang on a second. I think that's my Steve. I've never seen the Charles in here. I'm gonna unmute you.
There we go.
Hey, there he is, people. The hero of Seattle.
Thanks for the welcome.
You had some comments, maybe not so much a question, but I'd love for you to share these comments with people.
Yeah, this is something we've been working with now on a daily basis, and thanks for your comments earlier. We're really doing nothing more than stepping up and trying to keep our men and clients safe. I think that a lot more is being spent on the mechanical issues and not enough being spent on the motivational and leadership issues. And with regard to that, I think it's important, if you have people who are fearful right now on your team, it may expose a lack of understanding of what our position is in society. Plumbers, we're a plumbing shop, not an HVAC shop, but plumbers in our position have always been first-line responders. We've always been emergency responders. We've always been in the business of protecting ourselves from E. coli, cholera, and everything else that festers down in a sewer. All of the equipment that we're currently using precautionarily in the field is equipment that's standard equipment. Now, we're in a fortunate place. I raised my prices 2 months before this began, so I don't have to worry about a price increase. Yes, we are using more gloves. We're using more masks, filters. We're using more Tyvek suits. But I really think that it needs to be drilled into your service technicians, whether they're plumbers or HVAC, that they are emergency first responders, always, before this crisis and after it and during. And maybe, just maybe, there's nothing wrong with this either. Maybe they're not cut out for it. Maybe they shouldn't be on the first line. Because if there is somebody fearful, and I've heard from a lot of people in our service membership through SET and through SGI, I've heard from a lot of members whose people are fearful. And I'm not making light of that. That's a condition, and I deal with that as compassionately as any other. But if they're not cut out for it, I wouldn't send that person in the field. I'm fortunate my company is really small. I've talked to every man face to face from 6 feet away, and I've talked to them as a group every single morning. We're all on the same page. We're all proud to be first responders, and I think that's the attitude you need to find and cultivate. And if somebody doesn't have that attitude, I really think they could be a problem for your team. You don't want that attitude to spread. There are people in companies I'm seeing right now, I call it a technician's desire for a snow day. Hey, I don't particularly need money. I just paid rent, caught up on my bills. Maybe I could use some time off. Well, we had that attitude cropping up. We dealt with it. In the last 2 days, my 7-technician shop has done over 40,000 in revenue because they focused on the opportunities that were presented. We've got call volumes that have dropped by more than 50%, but the men are capitalizing and closing better on the calls that they have. That's magical. And that's because they're aware of this first responder mentality and the urgency of the situation. They know the client's in need. And in spite of this risk, the client invited us into our home. Guys, that's like being able to read all the other poker players' hands in the game. That's a guaranteed closing. So we are first responders. Your technicians need to know that, and they need to be proud of it. And maybe, just maybe, if they don't have that attitude, maybe they shouldn't be in that position.
That's an excellent point, Steve. Thank you for sharing. Appreciate that very much.
Yeah.
By the way, guys,
I want to add a topic onto that because Steve's absolutely right. One thing we have to consider, if anybody, for everyone that's done Todd's training for their techs, so our technicians are people too, and settling anxieties for our customers is one of the things that are trained. Well, our technicians are customers too. They're just our customers, you know, and so settling anxieties for these technicians is a huge part of this motivating factor because, you know, they get worried just like customers do. Mm-hmm. And this is an unforeseen circumstance. And so you got to settle some anxieties and let them know, reassure them, this is going to be okay. We're going to get through this together.
Absolutely. And, you know, I appreciate you saying that. And I just want you guys to know that if you were struggling a little bit with finding a way to have a method of normalcy, the folks that you've heard from are clients. We're still in their, shop every single week. We're just in their shop every week through Zoom. You know, we just had a fairly large router company come to us and asked us to come into their shop via Zoom. Every technician is going to be at their house. And we're going to work with their 60 people so that we can provide them not just motivation, but real practical help through this time so that when this is over, they can hit out there and not have lost focus on how to run the call. So I appreciate that. And if anybody is interested in how we can help you through this time period, it doesn't have to be a forever thing. If you need us for a couple of weeks, let us know. We can certainly put together some things to help you out. So just want to put that out there if you guys don't mind. We are also part of the economy we're serving you, so I feel fine for telling you that. Okay, here's a bonus tip from Travis Hudson. Thank you for this, Travis. He said, right now, Shuby has some gloves. He just bought a few boxes. Thank you. And he said, if you go to unclebudsHemp.com, unclebudsHemp.com, they are not a purveyor of marijuana. They actually sell nice hand sanitizer made with hemp. So feel free to check them out. Hey, alternative places I think is actually really smart. Going to places you don't normally think of. So unclebudsHemp.com. Bless us and forgive me if you get there and Travis is giggling and they actually are selling marijuana. It'll be on him, not me. All righty. So Tim and Daniel, I'm going to say thank you both so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Tim, thank you for getting me that updated COVID policy. If you want to send me an email at Todd, TODD @serveextra.com, I'll get it to you. If you want to have a short conversation about helping us bring some normalcy to your business, we're happy to do that. It's what we do. So I'm going to give the final words to you guys. Daniel, I'm going to let you go first, and then Tim, I'm going to let you go, and then I'm just going to say thank you to everybody, and we're going to be done. So Daniel, if you would, please.
Yeah, I want to thank Service Excellence Training, Todd, you in particular. It's one of those situations that had y'all not been doing some of the things that you're doing to keep us contractors aware of the situation and motivated, then likely we would be even further behind the 8 ball than we are. I love the fact that some of your posts, the post, if y'all haven't watched Todd's post on the 3 things to be grateful for, it's one of my favorite posts because everybody right now is freaking out. And that was a really positive, inspiring post. And Todd said in that post that, their goal is to provide hope. And it's good because I'm getting that from Todd and his guys. So I'm getting help with that. And because it's my job to turn around and then convey that to my guys as well. So I appreciate the opportunity to come here and speak with y'all today. I hope anything that I've said has been helpful, and I appreciate the opportunity to work with Todd and his guys. Y'all are really great.
Well, you guys are a blessing. Thank you, Daniel. That's very kind. It's very touching. I appreciate that. Thank you. Tim?
Yeah, Todd, it's interesting when you build a culture, and I think we have, where our people know that they come first. When you roll into a storm like this, it's amazing how they'll perform, and I'm very proud of our group. But it's interesting, as an industry, a lot of us talk about we put the technicians first, then we put the client second, and the company's going to get what it needs. In that scenario, we tend to be talking about the company's going to be profitable. Where we are currently now, I think we still have to put our team first, but we have to put our company second. Mm-hmm. And when I'm saying that, I'm not talking then about the profits of the company. I'm saying the company is then all of us together, because if the company doesn't survive this, then we don't have what we've all been working for so long, that place that we all call home. Mm-hmm. So to us, it's still our team first. We're never going to ask them to do something that they don't feel is safe. If there's someone coughing or sneezing, even though we've asked 3 times before we get to the house, they're told they don't go in the door. If they find out someone is sick after we're arriving, we've told them to leave. Now, we're still going to put them first, but we have to make sure the company survives, because their families are still counting on us for the benefits, for the paychecks, and all those sorts of things. So our priority is a little bit different right now. It's not a profit-driven priority. It's a protect the team priority, and that's the main thing that the company can do.
Wonderful. Well, guys, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. You guys are a blessing to us and to everyone here, and to the hundreds of people that will watch this after the fact. Thank you to Steve. Love you. Thank you for all of your questions, guys. And, share this if you find it helpful. And as in all things in life, go turn learning into earning. Have a great day.
Thanks, Todd.